I put a teaser out there. What would it be like if there was no God? And that was got me going into what I ended up with here. And so I'm just going to read something here to start with. This will take a few minutes. Without God, we would have only chaos, for there would be no organization. How else can we obtain organization except through attraction? And what is attraction except love? So what becomes unattractive? That which rejects. And what becomes attractive? That which accepts. And what is holy? Only that which is whole. And what is whole? Only that which accepts all. And what is unholy? Only that which rejects any. Yet acceptance of all without organization is still chaos. So what is love? Love is relationship within attraction. One must give love to that which receives love, and one must receive love from that which gives love. It appears that love requires two, but what accepts all must be one in itself, or it would not be whole. We appear to have an impasse, yet surely love must be given and received, or it does not exist. What is the solution? God creates a sun. The sun must be whole, or it would be unholy. It must include all and reject nothing. It must be a complete extension of the Father. Now there appear to be two. Love can be given and received. Two who are whole and holy can interact in holy relationship. That is, love can be given and received in wholeness. What is chaos but all possibilities of all thoughts without meaningful organization? And what is meaningful organization but all thoughts of love in relationship to one another? And where is meaning outside of love? But meaningful organization is only meaningful if it is experienced. It must be alive, now, in this moment. All loving relationships must exist in the eternal now. Otherwise, some would be lost, and the whole would no longer be whole, whether father or son. The eternal Son, as an extension of the Father, must be living every loving relationship eternally. And so it is. It lives through us and as us in every possible way. Every unloving thought we appear to have leads to dissolution and ultimately to chaos. Every loving thought we claim and allow is accepted by the whole and ultimately organized meaningfully within the Son in the eternal now. Our ultimate realities cannot be chaos, for that would be no reality at all. Thus, our ultimate realities must be this Son of God, when unloving thoughts of chaos can no longer live in our minds simply because we know they are thoughts of unreality. But surely we cannot be the Son, for the Son can have only loving thoughts like the Father, completely organized in loving relationship and totally foreign to chaos. So perhaps we are the Son in waiting, the Son seeming to live through almost eternal experiential resurrection. But resurrection from what? From all possibilities of chaos. That is, resurrection from all unloving thoughts. Thus, our unloving thoughts appear to be almost endless paths of crucifixion until somehow, someday, our minds are totally purified. How can I purify my mind? Where is this ultimate knowing that seems to elude me? By myself I can do nothing. God waits. Waits for what? For us to learn the value of love. Love without free will is meaningless, as is love itself meaningless without freedom. We are free to choose chaos until we have had enough. We will have had enough when love becomes all we want. We will have learned the value of love by simple contrast. We are not alone in this choosing. Love is always with us, waiting for our next choice. Any thoughts or comments on that?
Well, it's a lot, yeah. What I read today in the Course of Love, why, that was it. And put beautifully.
Well, okay, now I'd like to go into something about chaos, and that's what we'll be talking about today is chaos. And I know that's inappropriate in today's world, but we're going to do it anyway.
So in the context, what if there was no God?
Then we're left with chaos. Because God is organization within loving relationship. When I got guidance for my book, I received the introduction to the book after I'd gotten everything else and finished it. And the introduction went, if I can remember, and I think I do, outside of God is only chaos. And outside of chaos has God organized himself as all love relating to all love. Thus has God extracted all meaning from all potential chaos, establishing anything that does not appear to be within himself as meaningless. What cannot be used in the living process of all love relating to all love is released to the nothingness that remains as potential without meaningful purpose. Therefore, it has no potential at all. God is organization out of chaos through relationship. And it goes right back to the idea of the Father and the Son. How does oneness interact with itself in any meaningful way if it can't extend itself and interact with that extension? But how can it interact with that extension in any meaningful way unless that extension is the completeness of God itself? So I bring this idea up because of the world today and because of the way we get entangled in it. We get sucked into it. And just like Brian said, yeah, I can forgive all of that until it hits home. When it starts to hit home for us, we get sucked into it. And most of us here, I can't speak for anyone but myself, but I get sucked into it. But when I really get sucked into it is if it affects me or Patty or the kids or the grandkids or someone in this group like Laurel or whatever. When it hits home is when we really start questioning the ideas that are so theoretical in here. And now we're being asked to bring them in. So let's go to, I'm not kidding about the 35 paragraphs, but we can do it pretty quickly, actually. Let's go to the workbook on page 88.
No neutral thoughts. No neutral thoughts.
Oh, pardon me, I'm going to make you go to 86 instead. Sorry for that terrible confusion there.
Chaos.
Chaos, exactly.
Forgive you for it.
Right. So I'd like us to just read these 5 lessons, which are summaries of lessons 11 through 15. These summaries have just so much beauty in themselves that it can be sometimes overlooked. So one at a time, I'd just like to have us read these 5 paragraphs. Patty, let's start.
1. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Since the thoughts of which I am aware do not mean anything, the world that pictures them can have no meaning. What is producing this world is insane, and so is what it produces. Reality is not insane, and I have real thoughts as well as insane ones. I can therefore see a real world if I look to my real thoughts as my guide for seeing.
Tom?
I am upset because I see a meaningless world. Insane thoughts are upsetting. They produce a world in which there is no order anywhere. Only chaos rules a world that represents chaotic thinking, and chaos has no laws. I cannot live in peace in such a world. I am grateful that this world is not real and that I need not see it at all unless I choose to value it. And I do not choose to value what is totally insane and has no meaning.
Betty?
A meaningless world engenders fear. The totally insane engenders fear because it is completely undependable and offers no grounds for trust. Nothing in madness is dependable. It holds out no safety and no hope. But such a world is not real. I have given it the illusion of reality and have suffered from my belief in it. Now I choose to withdraw this belief and place my trust in reality. In choosing this, I will escape all the effects of the world of fear because I am acknowledging that it does not exist.
God did not create a meaningless world. How can a meaningless world exist if God did not create it? He is the source of all meaning, and everything that is real is in his mind. It is my mind too, because he created it with me. Why should I continue to suffer from the effects of my own insane thoughts when the perfection of creation is my home? Let me remember the power of my decision and recognize where I really abide.
My thoughts are images that I have made. Whatever I see reflects my thoughts. It is my thoughts that tell me where I am and what I am. The fact that I see a world in which there is suffering and loss and death shows me that I am seeing only the representation of my insane thoughts, and am not allowing my real thoughts to cast their beneficent light on what I see. Yet God's way is sure. The images I have made cannot prevail against him, because it is not my will that they do so. My will is his, and I will place no other gods before him.
So these 5 summaries of these 5 lessons strike me as extremely powerful. I don't know how many years of reading the course that I would gloss over these, but they're starting to mean something. Either the world I see is real or it isn't. I'm going to have to face that someday.
So is it possible to have a real God in the absence of communication with the Holy Spirit?
I don't believe so. No.
Yeah.
Roger. Sorry, I just had to do that.
You just had to do that.
I won't do it again. I promise. It was just one of those things like Sam did there. You know, Sam. I'm having fun. Okay. All right. Anyway, let's go to another spot in here. Where am I?
One thing about this here too, that I was kind of pondering is if that's kind of related to proselytizing. If you do that excessively, do you become a prostitute?
That needs to stay in there.
Maybe if you even do it once, you're a prostitute.
Okay. Let's go to page 281 in the workbook. 281. All the way down at the bottom.
281, yeah.
So paragraph 6, Mary, if you wouldn't mind reading that.
It is not strange that you believe to think you made the world.
I don't want to correct you, but is it not strange?
It is not.
It's a question.
Use it now. Yeah.
That you made the world you see is arrogant. God made it not. Of this you can be sure. What can he know of the ephemeral, the sinful and the guilty, the afraid, the suffering and lonely, and the mind that lives within a body that must die? You but accuse him of insanity to think he made a world where such things seem to have reality. He is not mad, yet only madness makes a world like this.
And the next one.
To think that God made chaos contradicts his will, to bend opposites to truth, and suffers death to triumph over life. All this is arrogant. Humility to see at once these things are not of him. And can you see what God created not? To think you can is merely to believe you can perceive what God will not to be. And what could be more arrogant than this?
So I think that, again, reinforces what we just read in those other 5 paragraphs. By the way, we're moving right along. We already have 7 at 35. How often do we keep this in our mind? Is it not strange that you believe to think you made the world you see is arrogance? God made it not. How many of us really, really believe we made the world we see?
Sometimes.
It sort of depends on what we call the world. Are you talking about the physical matter of the world or the experiences of the world?
It does depend on that. For me, it's a little easier to see, well, I've been told I made this situation. I made this for myself. This was part of my script. It's a setup, and I can see it now. There's almost big words. Set up, that allows me to say, okay, I've been down this road before, and I'm supposed to learn a lesson that I apparently didn't learn before. So now, help me to ask for the lesson without fear. So that's easier than saying, I made that door, I made that door, I made this light, I made all your bodies. So the physical world becomes a tougher situation. That's kind of answered, though. I look at the physical world like the Shakespeare statement, all the world's a stage. And the physical world is a stage. If we look at this from the standpoint of a game, which of course goes to fairly often, and say, okay, we all agreed to play the same game on roughly the same stage. So, yes, we can see that tree, you can see it, I can see it. The really fantastic part of this, which is hard for the mind to grasp, or at least mine, is that you're still making the tree and I'm still making the tree. We have to understand what our minds are doing. We're each perceiving that tree from our own perspective. Yes.
Make a comment?
Yes, please.
I think this would all be a lot easier for us to accept if we weren't trying to come at it through the understanding of our separateness. If we were reading this with the awareness that our oneness was our reality, then what you see and what I see is not amazing to be the same, because we are the same. We share the same mind. We share the same awareness. So again, it seems to be extraordinary that you could see and I could see the same tree. And yet, if we believed that we were parts of the same being, it no longer is quite so extraordinary.
It all depends on who we're talking about when we say, I made this world. And I think it's very difficult for us who've been so indoctrinated for however long to say that I is Brian, I is Kat, rather than I as the one made this world. You know, so is it the big I, or the little one? When we say I, it's difficult to break out of that notion that the I is this person.
Yeah.
It's easier for me, Brian, if I look at it from the standpoint of I am the fragment of mind that is a part of the mind that chose separation. So, in the holographic nature of everything, including the idea of separation, if you think about it, oneness is holographic, it's all-inclusive. All ideas that are shared are basically holographic if you buy into them. So the fact that my fragment of mind bought into the idea of separation means that I was there at the Big Bang. And so this is what it means to, my only function is to accept the atonement for myself. I'm accepting it for that entire idea, for the whole sonship, because the only place it exists in my fragment of mind is in that fragment. So that whole sonship is released at once, and the fragment itself goes back into the oneness. I'm holding that everything I perceive separate, because that was the idea that I wanted, and I can't get away from the fact that I wanted it by saying, no, that was the fallen angel, that was the Son of God. No, that was my whole mind at that time that wanted it, and I am a fragment of that still. But now, it's going back. Until we want it, though, we're going to play the game because it appeals to us. The drama appeals to us. The fact that we made this game appeals to us. The fact that we've forgotten our reality allows us to believe this is reality. And so we think we're leaving reality to some nebulous thing that's just a promise of heaven. And it's pretty tough until we get to a point where we start to say, okay, I know this isn't real. I'm really starting to know this isn't real. Show me what is. I really want it now.
What helps me is to remember that anything that's real won't change.
Right.
So what are
what's
we
real?
talking about here?
That's where these first 5 lessons went. But in order to address your question a little bit too, I think was your Brian about the idea of taking responsibility for the whole thing. There is another summary, and it is on page 88 that I went to in the first place, and it's of the workbook, and it's number 3, right at the bottom of page 88 of the workbook. Scott, for you, if you're going to read it, it is lesson 54, paragraph 3.
It's all right.
That helps a lot.
I bet.
I'm going to bring my other book
Okay.
alternating weeks.
I'm sorry, lesson 54, paragraph 3.
Yeah.
Did you want to read that?
I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts.
Of my scene. Yours says thoughts?
4:3.
His says thoughts.
That's the second.
Mine says scene.
Yeah, that's the second time.
No,
yours-
I'm on the wrong paragraph.
Oh, okay.
I was on 19, not 18.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my sin. I have no private thoughts. I cannot see a private world. Even the mad idea of separation had to be shared before it could form the basis of the world I see. Yet that sharing was a sharing of nothing. I can also call upon my real thoughts, which share everything with everyone. As my thoughts of separation call to the separation thoughts of others, my real thoughts awaken the real thoughts in them. And the world my real thoughts show maybe will dawn on their sight as well as mine.
We change the entire world by changing our mind. We agreed. There was agreement between the fragments before they became fragments that we're going to play the game. And so we all see roughly the same stage. But how many times can people look at something and they say, well, that's blue, no, that's green? I remember reading in one of my readings that 4 people were out in the Nevada desert and a spaceship landed. And 2 of them saw space beings walk out and approach them and then turn around and walk back in. And then it took off. And the other 2 of them did see nothing. So if that doesn't tell us we make our work, the other 2 obviously were like the Indians that saw the ships of Columbus. They saw the little boats but couldn't see the big ones because it wasn't there in their minds to be able to accept it.
You know, it's very interesting because there's a dilemma in science that's analogous to what we're talking about. And the dilemma in science is that in particle physics, a given particle does not have any actual existence. What it has is only probable existence. So all of the factors, its location, its speed, acceleration, all these things are only probabilistic. They're not real, and only if there's an observer that tries to find out what is this location, does it seem to have an actual location. And so what they call classical observation, which is what we normally see, they can't find a connection between all that we're presumably made of, which doesn't have any actuality, and our normal observation, which seems to have everything as being solid and fixed. And they can't cross that barrier. They haven't found a way to reconcile these 2 things.
Why do you think that is, Sam?
Well, because all of this is observation, and all this is based on the reasoning of human beings, which see things in a certain way, and what you're looking at isn't there.
Could it possibly be? Could it possibly be because somewhere in our unconscious we recognize that it isn't real?
So science is getting a glimmering of the unreality. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the verse just said, we see what we want.
Well, I think lesson 51 addresses that quite well.
In your case, you said a little bit of science will lead you away from God. A lot of science will lead you toward it.
That's good.
What is that word? Lesson 15. One.
A digression on, since Sam opened up
Well,
science stuff. A simplistic idea I have of chaos theory, which I think is, I'm being amazed at how this is analogous, is that scientists had a hard time with what they considered chaotic systems. And so a star would explode and it looked like here was a system organized, and everything in place. And all of a sudden it would blow up, and all these particles apparently look like absolute chaos. And until they could get a larger understanding, i.e. computers that could process the information, they couldn't see that within chaos theory is self-organizing systems. And so one system was like this, it would blow apart, and then it reorganizes around what's called a strange attractor. And so what looked like total chaos, when they got the ability to image it large enough, were these beautiful, beautiful reorganizing systems. So there was always that symmetry. We just didn't have that our minds weren't large enough to see what was really going on.
The way I look at that is constant resurrection of apparent crucifixion.
Isn't that exactly what you just read at the very beginning?
Constant resurrection.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I'm just chuckling.
I've heard this twice now.
Yeah, I'm just chuckling how, but you see, all these things, everything's a metaphor for everything.
Right.
And so,
Can anything exist without the observer?
Einstein.
That's a delightful,
You
interesting.
cannot make a sound without a receiver, so
Things don't
it
exist
seems to hold true.
in a void. Everything is a product of our observation and purpose for it.
The observer itself is the organizer.
Yes. Yes.
so,
It has no other meaning or no other reason to exist without
all
that.
this came out of the question, who am I?
What am I?
Let's go to, because we've got 72 paragraphs to go. Oh, you're supposed to be living in the now. All right, let's go to the text, to page 445. And then after this, we're going to cover the entire section on the laws of chaos. Okay, 445, we want to read
The text.
let's see, Kat, is it yours? Or? Right from the top, yeah.
Reason and perception. Introduction. Projection makes perception. The world you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. But though it is no more than that, it is not less. Therefore, to you, it is important. It is the witness to your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. As a man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but to choose to change your mind about the world. Perception is a result, not a cause. And that is why order of difficulty in miracles is meaningless. Everything looked upon with vision is healed and holy. Nothing perceived without it means anything. And where there is no meaning, there is chaos.
And then if we just, for this, I'd like just to have the first two paragraphs is all we need. Brian, if you want to do that.
Damnation is your judgment on yourself, and this you will project upon the world. See it as damned, and all you see is what you did to hurt the Son of God. If you behold disaster and catastrophe, you try to crucify it. If you see holiness and hope, you join the will of God to set him free. There is no choice that lies between these two decisions. And you will see the witness to the choice you made, and learn from this to recognize which one you chose. The world you see but shows you how much joy you have allowed yourself to see in you and to accept as yours. And if this is its meaning, then the power to give it joy must lie within you.
Can we feel the power of those last two sentences? The world you see but shows you how much joy you and have. I'll emphasize the words that were originally emphasized. The world you see but shows you how much joy you have chose. The world, have allowed yourself to see in you and to accept as yours. You and yours. And this, if this is its meaning, then the power to give it joy must be within you. This is telling us we are not victims of the world we see. We have a choice. We're not choosing joy. What's the reason we wouldn't choose joy for ourselves? Well, maybe guilt. And then unworthiness of receiving joy and nothing but joy. So it's within us to ask for this and have it be given us. But most of us, or at least I'll speak for myself again, well, I've got to go through the right process. Am I talking to the right Holy Spirit or the one that just keeps saying, not right now, buddy, whatever. It becomes a lot less complicated if I can just break this down to say, well, how much joy do I think I deserve? How much joy do I want?
How free do you want to be? It's one of my favorite questions.
What's that?
How free do you want to be?
But see, then we start saying, but all of the immigrants and all of the disaster. And wait. That's the world of my past that I aligned with others to make the game go. I can when we're talking about stepping out of the whole game and saying, no, this is what I want to see. This is all I want to see. All that other stuff we just read isn't real. It isn't real. Why do I want it? I don't. I just don't. And not only am I not guilty, but if I'm not, nobody else is.
And, it seems to me, Tom, in that process, if I think I'm going to find that joy in anything in the world, there's the chaos and insanity. In this, when is it that I'm willing to stop, to know the joy that I am?
Yeah, when? Good question. So I think we can do this. Let's go to the laws of chaos. We're on in the text, page 489. So, and we'll read right through these and then take just a very brief time to summarize. The reason I'm doing these is because these are the laws of our perception. We read earlier, there are no laws to chaos. And it says in chapter 10, I think, chaos has no laws. Well, this puts laws in quotation marks. But what it really means is these are the rules of the game that we play by within this illusion. And these rules, whether we know it or not right now, are what we have played the game by.
But they must also be an illusion, I would imagine.
Absolutely. That's what it's telling us. Here's what you believe because of the world you made, or that resulted in the world you made. This is why that world appears before you.
And the world doesn't exist until you see it.
Yeah, exactly.
So all of these machinations, the scientific discoveries, are what? They are the observations of a belief manifesting itself. That's all.
How do we apply this to this recent drama of the children being removed and, that chaos?
I only know one way to apply that, is to look at it, not try to hide it, not try to hide from it, but to look directly at it and just become as transparent as I can be and have it shoot right through me and say, I don't understand this. I don't know what this means. Holy Spirit, tell me if this is truth or illusion.
Is it possible that in the everything's a metaphor, it's just a blatant metaphor for the reality of our time? We've been doing this a long time. We're not new on earth. Maybe it's, I don't know, but I'm as sick as anyone else because I still see your body, and I respond to the same things that everyone else responds, but it doesn't shock me, it doesn't hurt me when I look at it and I see it, that's a reflection of the past, that's a reflection of the thinking that got me here, it's a reflection of the thinking that got the world here. And if the Course says if I'm unwilling to look at it, if I'm unwilling to see it, then there's nothing that I can do about it because it sits there unmanifest. But when I am able to look at it and I'm able to look at this situation where these children are being ripped from their parents, while this situation that's mirroring this, I'm choosing to be removed from my God, my Father. I'm not saying that it's great. I'm saying that, but it for me is effective.
So I think we're talking about levels here, Jeff, and it's the idea that the way I understand this, it's not telling us not to look at this with our eyes, but it's telling us to then turn that over, because what we're seeing is apparent crucifixion. When we look at it without the eyes and without the bodies, all of a sudden we are opening ourselves to what it calls Christ's vision. And then we only see the resurrection from the problem. We only see the release. We don't see the imprisonment. We only see the release. We don't see the torture. We don't see anything. All we see is that this problem, this question, was a false question, and it has been answered. That's my idea of Christ's vision, is all we see is the answer to all the apparent questions. I think when it's saying, well, overlook them, don't look at them, I think what I'm reading is Christ's vision overlooks it and looks right through it to the answer. But from our lower level of this thing is, if we try to overlook it and turn off the news and everything else, then we're making it more fearful because we're making it real and we're hiding from it. So that's the idea of, okay, I'll look at this. The real trick is, can I really look at it without automatically judging it? Can I look at it and turn it over and be transparent? Or am I sending my judgment automatically up with it? That's the real challenge.
The laws of karma, habitual karma, has been helpful to me in that how I see these things is because when I look at anything with judgment, attachment, and resistance, then the karma my habitual karma continues to expand, and then therefore I suffer and I cause suffering for everyone else that I come in contact with. When I can see it with non-judgment, non-attachment, and non-resistance, then my karma or my suffering and their suffering can stop.
All karma is within the illusion.
Yeah.
All of it.
Right.
It's the idea that we have a debt to pay, and why would you pay a debt to an illusion?
Right.
The key word is illusion. If we just got that, I ask myself, I don't call it illusion, I call it a dream. So I say to myself, what part of this dream do I insist is real? And see, that's where my pain is. Whatever part I insist is reality. What is reality? Love. What else? Nothing. Nothing. So, if I
Could you
if
be
I
a little
can
more
get-
explicit, Jim?
What's that? I didn't hear you.
I said, could you be a little more explicit?
If I knew how, I would.
Tom, I think this 151 addresses this very well.
Why don't you read what you want to read?
Okay. No one can judge on partial evidence. I've added to my own mind partial knowledge. That is not judgment. It is merely an opinion based on ignorance and doubt. Its seeming certainty is but a cloak for the uncertainty it would conceal. It needs irrational defense because it is irrational. And its defense seems strong, convincing, and without a doubt because of all the doubting underneath. And so when I'm listening to the talking heads, in the media, that's, I think, what I'm listening to.
That's I think a really good explanation of to help us when we see something, telling us, I can say, here it is, I don't have judgment attached, except I have judgment attached. But if we could keep that in mind, what you just read there, Sam, is that I have no ability or qualifications to judge. So I'm not sending it up with anything but an opinion. So why bother to throw an opinion on it?
We know in part and we see in part. Right? Out of the Bible.
Well, let's get into the laws of chaos.
I think the irony of it is, for me, that the only time I get caught up in world affairs is when I come to a spiritual group.
That's your own dog.
I don't really have a problem with that philosophy. Because it seems like what we're trying to do, if we spend too much time with the news and stuff, is to try to empathize and try to fix it. And it's fine to send love, but the Course tells us send it to the Holy Spirit because you don't know what to do with it. Because you're sending it to an illusion. If you have the compassion, send it to the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit can use it where it's needed in whatever situation is needed within the dream, because the Holy Spirit sees the dream and knows it's an illusion.
And that's the advice of 151.
Right.
Send it to the Holy Spirit.
Right.
I've got to land in the position that the only logical place for me to be in terms of looking at the world is humility. But I don't have the knowledge. I don't know anybody around me that does, so I'm left with no other choice but give it to the Holy Spirit.
That's your transparency, Tom.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Tom. That's a good connection there of humility and transparency. Yeah.
I just said, when you talk about it, letting it pass through you, I had an experience of road rage where this guy was ready to knock my block off. And his rage was so fierce in my face that I felt it literally just go through me. None of it stuck. And there was no defense. And in that moment, that everything stopped.
In my defenselessness, my safety lies.
Yeah, he turned, he got back in his car.
It's wonderful to have examples of it actually working, isn't it?
And so your notion, the only thing that I'm going to see is that part where that sticks. So your idea of it just passing through is really kind of, it just, how you're saying it, that was the feel of that rage, is that it just passed through.
I think when you let it pass through and that pass upward, what you're gifted sometimes is insight. That I can only presume comes from the Holy Spirit.
In the introduction of the Course, it sums up what we're talking about very clearly.
Yeah.
Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just, in the whole introduction paragraph, it's what we're talking about. what we're trying to understand.
You're talking about
Yeah.
asking the Holy Spirit to take the love. One of the first meetings I came to here, we were discussing that. Offering the love up to the Holy Spirit and asking Him to send it wherever will do the most good. So I went home and I did that. And the voice in my head said, I'm sending it back to you. That's where it will do the most good.
Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that absolutely what we all need?
Yeah.
If we would get that, everything would be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't your going on me.
It surprised me. The answer surprised me. But it doesn't surprise me now. That is where it'll do the most good.
So we're going to change the format a little bit. Instead of doing the 22 paragraphs of the laws of chaos, I'm going to do about 5, and I'm going to just go through them myself, because there are 5 things to take note of here that we get stuck on in this world.
Right. 489.
And I'm just going to, it's page 489, text. And I'm just going to read the actual laws, and we're going to, if you want to go back, you can later, because I want to finish on a high note, and the laws of chaos is not going to be a high note necessarily. So on paragraph 2, the first chaotic law is that the truth is different for everyone. Like all these principles, this one maintains that each is separate and has a different set of thoughts that set him off from others. This principle evolves from the belief there is a hierarchy of illusions. Some are more valuable and therefore true. Each one establishes this for himself and makes it true by his attack on what another values. And this is justified because the values differ, and those who hold them seem to be unlike and therefore enemies. So, I turned 2 pages. No wonder I went from 1 to 5. So now I'm going to go all the way to the next page, to paragraph 4. The second law of chaos, dear indeed to every worshiper of sin, is that each one must sin, and therefore deserves attack and death. This principle, closely related to the first, is the demand that errors call for punishment and not correction. For the destruction of the one who makes the error places him beyond correction and beyond forgiveness. What he has done is thus interpreted as an irrevocable sentence upon himself, which God himself is powerless to overcome. Sin cannot be remitted, being the belief the Son of God can make mistakes for which his own destruction becomes inevitable. In other words, all mistakes are actually sins. And then we get to the third one, and this is kind of hidden here in paragraph 6. The arrogance on which the laws of chaos stand could not be more apparent than emerges here. Here is a principle. I guess I'm going to have to do 5 as well. Let's go to 5. Think what this seems to do to the relationship between the Father and the Son. Now it appears that they can never be one again. For one must always be condemned, and by the other. Now are they different and enemies, and their relationship is one of opposition, just as the separate aspects of the Son meet only to conflict but not to join. One becomes weak, the other strong by his defeat, and fear of God and of each other now appears as sensible, made real by what the Son of God has done both to himself and to his Creator. In other words, we have made sin out of mistakes, needing to be punished, and now we've decided that that's done. So we'll read on.
I think it's
Go ahead.
interesting there that they capitalized the word "they," the first letter in that word.
Both
Talking about their enemies, they're us and the others, but it's saying with that capital letter that both sides are divided.
Well, I think what it's saying, the enemies of they, both the Father and the Son, is what they mean.
Okay.
The arrogance on which the laws of chaos stand could not be more apparent than emerges here. Here's a principle that would define what the creator of reality must be. what he must think and what he must believe and how he must respond believing it. It is not seen as even necessary that he be asked about the truth of what has been established for his belief. We're talking about the Creator here. We don't even need to ask the Creator about his belief. We've decided. His Son can tell him this, and he has but the choice, meaning he, the Creator, has but the choice whether to take his word for it or be mistaken. This leads directly to the third preposterous belief that seems to make chaos eternal. For if God cannot be mistaken, he must accept his Son's belief in what he is and hate him for it. In other words, if we think we're guilty, we've overruled God, and God has to believe us. And so that's the way it is. We're guilty, that's it. We know what God thinks. God now becomes our enemy. He's fearful. And we've decided what God thinks about us. If we think about it simply, if we think we've sinned or are guilty of anything, we have decided that God must think that too. Now, how can we not fear God for retribution? So,
next sentence says that. See how the fear of God is reinforced by this third principle.
Why don't you finish reading that?
Now it becomes impossible to turn to him for help in misery. For now he has become the enemy who caused it, to whom appeal is useless. Nor can salvation lie within the Son, whose every aspect seems to be at war with him, and justified in its attack. And now is conflict made inevitable beyond the help of God. For now salvation must remain impossible, because the Savior has become the enemy.
If you don't mind, Brian, why don't you read the next one?
There can be no release and no escape. Atonement thus becomes a myth, and vengeance, not forgiveness, is the will of God. Sounds like the Old Testament, doesn't it?
Kind of.
From where all this begins, there is no side of help that can succeed. Only destruction can be the outcome, and God himself seems to be siding with it to overcome his Son. Think not the ego will enable you to find escape from what it wants. That is the function of this course, which does not value what the ego cherishes.
So we'll go to the fourth one now in the next paragraph. The ego values only what it takes. This leads to the fourth law of chaos, which, if the others are accepted, must be true. This seeming law is the belief that you have what you have taken. By this, another's loss becomes your gain, and thus it fails to recognize that you can never take away save from yourself. Yet all the other laws must lead to this, for enemies do not give willingly to one another, nor would they seek to share the things they value. And what your enemies would keep from you must be worth having, because they keep it hidden from your sight. Teddy, why don't you read the next one?
All of the mechanisms of madness are seen emerging here, the enemy, made strong by keeping hidden the valuable inheritance that should be yours, your justified position and attack for what has been withheld, and the inevitable loss the enemy must suffer to save yourself. Thus do the guilty ones protest their innocence. Were they not forced into this foul attack by the unscrupulous behavior of the enemy, they would respond with only kindness. But in the savage world, the kind cannot survive, so they must take her, else be taken from.
Don, did you want to read the next one?
And now there is a vague, unanswered question, not yet explained. What is this precious thing, this precious pearl, this hidden secret treasure to be wrested in righteousness, wrath from this most treacherous and cunning enemy? It must be that you want but never found, and now you understand. You understand the reason you found it not. for it was taken from you by this enemy and hidden where you would not think to look. He hid it in his body, making it cover for his guilt. The hiding place for what belongs to you. Now must his body be destroyed and sacrificed, that you may have that which belongs to you. His treachery demands his death, and that you may live. And you attack only in self-defense.
Sally?
But what is it you want that needs his death? Can you be sure your murderous attack is justified unless you know what it is for? And here a final principle of chaos comes to the rescue. It holds there is a substitute for love. This is the magic that will cure all of your pain, the missing factor in your Baptist that makes it sane. This is the reason why you must attack. Here's what makes your vengeance justified. Behold, unveiled the eagle's secret gift, torn from your brother's body, hidden there in malice and in hatred for the one to whom the gift belongs. He would deprive you of the secret ingredient that would give meaning to your life. The substitute for love, born of your enmity to your brother, must be salvation. It has no substitute, and there is only one. And all your relationships have but the purpose of seizing it and making it your own. Dark, very dark.
So I just want to read one more paragraph in this before we leave it. And that's on the next page at the top, paragraph 15. These do not seem to be the goals of chaos, for by the great reversal they appear to be the laws of order. How could it not be so? Chaos is lawlessness and has no laws. To be believed, its seeming laws must be perceived as real. Their goal of madness must be seen as sanity, and fear, with ashen lips and sightless eyes, blinded and terrible to look upon, is lifted to the throne of love. Its dying conqueror, its substitute, the Savior from salvation. How lovely do the laws of fear make death appear. Give thanks unto the hero on love's throne, who saved the Son of God for fear and death. So, is it really what we want? Is fear really the salvation? This is what we've done, actually. And this didn't make sense to me until I realized this. Remember where it says there are only two emotions, love and fear? And then I heard something on the radio on a review of a movie, which was a horror movie. And the interviewer said, I never go to horror movies. Why do you? And the one that reviewed the movie said very simply, because I want to feel. Now think about that. If that person isn't feeling love, what's the only alternative? But we can feel alive when we're in love, and we can feel the value of our life when we're in fear. We feel a value for our life, not the joy of our life. We fear for our life. This is why people coming back from war zones, particularly Vietnam, come back, and they make the statements, the ones in combat, make the statements, I never felt more alive than I was out in the field. And this is why they come back to our society and say this is meaningless. Because they don't find love here, because it's only within them anyway. And the only thing that ever made them feel alive then was fear. So, why do so many end up homeless and everything else? They're on the edge. They're living on the edge of fear and survival. It's where they felt most alive. I don't want to go any further into that because I want to finish on that high note. I wanted to go the idea that we have chosen fear. We have chosen fear to see what it would be like, because we chose separation to see that what it would be like, because we wanted to create our own special world. Anyway, there's
That's why I like going to movies that have a love theme, because I like to feel love. I mean, I never have liked horror movies, I never have. But I like the way it makes me feel when I watch a good love.
and what do the reviewers say? There's nothing new here. This ought to be on the Hallmark Channel. They just deride it. They just run it into the ground. I know you do, and I do too. Why not? I'm just going to finish with a couple paragraphs. Let's go to page 443. In the text, 443.
43 or 42?
443.
Okay.
Would you rather do 42? No, just kidding. All right. And we're getting close to the end, so I'm going to read through this. I'm going to read through these last 5 paragraphs. You can read along with me if you would. Judgment, I'm sorry, at 7, starting at 7, on page 443. Judgment is but a toy, a whim, the senseless means to play the idle game of death in your imagination. But vision sets all things right, bringing them gently within the kindly sway of heaven's laws. What if you recognize this world is an hallucination? What if you really understood you made it up? What if you realized that those who seem to walk about in it, to sin and die, attack and murder, and destroy themselves, are wholly unreal? Could you have faith in what you see if you accepted this? And would you see it? Hallucinations disappear when they are recognized for what they are. This is the healing and the remedy. Believe them not, and they are gone. And all you need to do is recognize that you did this. Once you accept this simple fact and take unto yourself the power you gave them, you are released from them. One thing is sure, hallucinations serve a purpose. And when that purpose is no longer held, they disappear. Therefore, the question never is whether you want them, but always do you want the purpose that they serve. This world seems to hold out many purposes, each different and with different values, yet they are all the same. Again, there is no order, only a seeming hierarchy of values. Only 2 purposes are possible, and one is sin, the other holiness. Nothing is in between, and which you choose determines what you see. For what you see is merely how you elect to meet your goal. Hallucinations serve to meet the goal of madness. They are the means by which the outside world, projected from within, adjusts to sin and seems to witness to its reality. It still is true that nothing is without. Yet upon nothing are all projections made. You see how all the world is a stage and we're sharing that projection? For it is the projection that gives the nothing all the meaning that it holds. What has no meaning cannot be perceived, and meaning always looks within to find itself and then looks out. All meaning that you give the world outside must thus reflect the sight you saw within, or better, if you saw at all or merely judged against. Vision is the means by which the Holy Spirit translates your nightmares into happy dreams. Your wild hallucinations that show you all the fearful outcomes of imagined sin into the calm and reassuring sights with which He would replace them. These gentle sights and sounds are looked on happily and heard with joy. They are His substitutes for all the terrifying sights and screaming sounds the ego's purpose brought to your horrified awareness. They step away from sin, reminding you that it is not reality which frightens you, and that the errors which you made can be corrected. When you have looked on what seemed terrifying and seen it change to sights of loveliness and peace, when you have looked on scenes of violence and death and watched them change to quiet views of gardens under open skies with clear, life-giving water running happily beside them and dancing brooks that never waste away, who need persuade you to accept the gift of vision? And after vision, who is there who could refuse what must come after? Think but an instant just on this. You can behold the holiness God gave his Son, and never need you think that there is something else for you to see. So we didn't quite get 35 paragraphs.
I know.
We got the heart of it.